Death is the unyielding truth that binds us all, an inevitable, profound, and deeply intimate encounter with the finite nature of life. It arrives without warning, shattering the world we thought we knew. In its wake, grief emerges, often dismissed as something to fix or get over. But what if grief, in its suffocating pain, is not a burden to carry or something from which we need to move on? What if grief is instead a sacred invitation, an opening to feel more deeply, to connect in unimaginable ways, and to transform all that we knew to be true? I'm Laura Walton, and I'm so grateful you're here. Together, let's step into the uncharted terrain of death and grief, not as something to fear or avoid, but as a force that shapes us, breaks us, and ultimately remakes us. Let's meet it not with resistance, but with curiosity and courage. And let's do this on purpose. Welcome back to another episode of Grief on Purpose, the podcast. Today, we're here with a special guest, Gila Shire. Gila, hi. Thank you for being here today.
Hi, welcome for being here.
Yeah. So Gila, you live in Arizona right now, but you're currently in Germany.
Yes, it's my last night visiting my family. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What part of Germany are you in?
I'm in Esslingen, that's near Stuttgart, 20 minutes out of Stuttgart in the south. Most people or guys recognize it when you say that Porsche and Mercedes are built in my hometown.
Okay.
The car people know.
They know
otherwise, it's an ancient historic town, 777 founded. So lots of history from medieval days, and also had a really meaningful position in medieval days. So
wow. Yeah. Okay. And is that the town you're originally from?
No, I wasn't born and raised here, but I lived here most of my life. I moved a lot when I was young because my dad was in the military, and we moved every 3+ years. And thank God we got stuck here. So I was 12 and a half when we moved here, and we moved from a different state. So I had a different accent, and the South is very specific with an accent. And the Swabish people are very different in their demeanor. So that was a little cultural change, as it is in the US when you move from the north to the south. That's what it would be close to compare it with. But I spent all of my teenage, childhood, early years here till I moved to Arizona in 97. So, and by now I'm getting closer to actually outlive the longest I've ever lived in the same house by living in Phoenix.
Yeah. You've been there for a while.
Yep, 28 years.
Okay. So we maybe, I don't remember exactly when this was, but we maybe originally crossed paths when you had maybe been in Arizona for a handful of years, because I think it might have been the early.
I pretty much know exactly when, because we met through yoga and our mutual friend Hannah. And that was once I started teaching after teacher training, and that was 2002, 2003.
Okay.
So it has been that long.
Good. Well, good memory. I wasn't sure originally how we had connected. I knew it was yoga related somehow.
Yeah.
But, okay. Yeah. So Hannah, I always confuse it in my head because I see Hannah. It and I think it's spelled different. But Hannah and I, grew up together. Yes, our parents were friends. And so I grew up with her and her sister and her brother. But you know them separately, partly, I think, because of the German connection, but there's probably another reason.
Hannah spotted my German accent because she was raised by a German mother.
Okay.
And once I knew that she had a German background, I started whispering German words in class to her.
That's cute.
That's how we connected. And that's how she realized, oh, you have to meet my family. And that's how I met the whole entire family. And and I don't know if you know or remember, but I became their massage therapist. And when her grandpa was transitioning, I was close involved. So there were a lot of beautiful family events where I was connected with them.
So you do, I think, from what I understand, a lot of different You work in a lot of different areas these days, right? You're a yoga
Yeah,
instructor, you're a massage therapist. Can you just share a
yeah,
little bit
yeah,
about what it is you do with your life?
yeah. I used to be a nurse here in Germany for 14 plus years. And then when I moved, I became a massage therapist. That's how I first ended up in Phoenix to pursue a massage training because it was offered all under one roof and everything I can design and put together the way I wanted it. And I needed a break from my then life in Germany. And that's how I ended up getting certified with body work. And then yoga came into the picture because actually during the massage training, we had to either take qigong classes or yoga classes, and that was my official first introduction to yoga.
Mm,
Which, if I look back and how that was in a very sterile study room with a ugly rundown carpet and just
mm,
tables and chairs pushed to the sides, not even yoga mats, but they
yeah.
still would call it yoga, that kind of thing. But that already kind of sparked my interest, and then I became a member at the YMCA, and that's where they had Kundalini yoga and other yoga, and from there everything started to unfold, and the next thing I knew was I'm taking my first teacher training in 2002, and with that came body work and the yoga, and my I always had a normal kind of connection with pregnancy. I know I was afraid of because most people act like pregnancy is a disease or it's dangerous or you could do something wrong. And I never had that kind of approach to it. So prenatal yoga and prenatal massages became one of my instant favorite things to offer. And then my clients started asking me if I want to attend their births, and that's how I got into birth work because I didn't even know that there is a term or a job description as doula. And with that, I always joke about it. I illegally doulaed for a while because I didn't even know it was a profession.
Oh.
And I also naively thought, oh, the way I gave birth in Germany in 91, it must be the same or similar. And boy, my eyes ripped open by the time I realized how different it
Mhm.
was. And that's how I got into birth work. And that's what I've been doing for the last nearly 20 years, all combined with everything else. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, so you still do a little bit of all of that. Is that right?
Yeah. I wear
Yeah.
all the
Mhm.
hats
Yeah.
wherever they fit and are needed. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm debating whether or not to start with yoga or grief, but maybe start with grief. Can you
Hmm.
share a little bit about what your
Yeah.
grief story is?
Yeah. First, and I'm reflecting often on that because by now in my age group, I will be, what am I this year? 62. You are surrounded by more losses, and it also hits your family more. But my earliest reflections on loss were actually happening when I was a nursing student. And it was interesting because my mom just had an emergency here and had to be hospitalized in the hospital where I studied and worked.
Mm.
So I had a memory lane walk down flash of all of that. And she was on the floor where I was rotating as a student. And that was the station where the nurses always put us young students into the room with the dying because A, there weren't enough people, and B, they've done it all their lives, and C, they just, that's what we had to do. So I was exposed to sitting with people dying quite early. I was just 18, 19 when I started my nursing training. So in that regard, I was not afraid of it, but looking back, I also witnessed a lot of different things, which then maybe didn't make sense, but later on, maturing, growing up and learning more and also experiencing personal loss, it was often like puzzle pieces coming together. And then by 2000, my youngest brother, I was really deeply connected with. He committed suicide, and that pretty much changed everything in my life. Besides that, I fell on my knees. I had so many first time emotions. You hear about them, but when it hits you, it's you can't even explain. It's just something I think we all go through very personal individually, even if as you have also experienced that kind of loss, it's something which will never leave you. And at the same time, it changed my life completely because it was like another, I wouldn't call it awakening, but another soul search, which started from there. I got very hungry about knowing things differently. And it was funny. And that's how circles close. My mom is sorting out and giving away a lot of stuff. And so she had a box when I arrived with all kinds of books on nutrition and health and whatever, tapping. One book was one of the first books I started reading after my brother left. And that was a book by Brian Weiss, Many Lives, Many Masters. And that is about reincarnation. And he's a past life regression professional. And I was once really close to study with him, and I met him in person. So that was one of the first things which started to open doors by the time my brother had left.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I need to read that book. It's on my to-read list, and it keeps coming up. Some people keep talking about it. Yes.
Yeah. I get goosebumps just talking about it.
Yeah. So what is your brother's name?
Dirk.
Can you spell that?
D-I-R-K. Dirk.
Okay.
But in German, it's Dirk.
Okay. And how old were you when he died?
Well, 25 years younger.
25 years younger than 60.
Yeah,
61?
I was in my 40s.
Okay.
Yeah.
How old was he?
30. He was just barely turning 30. And it's interesting because I knew, which I don't think anybody in my family knew, but he had called me a year prior to confess that he had tried to commit suicide. And I was just arriving in Phoenix at that time. And that already blew my mind. But we were at that time that close that he reached out. And he tried to get into therapy, but there were a lot of weird circumstances of a system which didn't really allow him to be supported the way he should have been supported in any kind of way. And in addition to that, the girlfriend he had at that time, and she was only 20, 21, had come into his life, and she helped him physically there because I was already far away. And then she got pregnant. And with all of that, I feel like he got off the track of really doing what at that point was not needed, because how do we know what somebody needs? But looking back, I wonder if he would have done it the next year, if none of that would have happened, because I know for sure by the time he got pregnant and she was that young, and her family didn't make any pressure, but my brothers, both of them, we all were raised on, I would say, values and standards, or I wouldn't say obligations, but it was clear that he committed to her, and they got married. And with that, I think the whole therapy went out the door, and he got sucked up into a life I don't think he ever would have chosen if he would not have had a baby. On the other hand, nothing is by chance or happens by accident. And today I'm very connected to his daughter who just had a baby. Yeah, and we just saw each other a couple times now that when I was here. So yeah, there are the blessings from a loss, which is also what I learned the most from the experience with him. And also recently, 2 years ago, with my dad's passing, it's important, I believe, that with all the pain, with all the change, that we remain open for all these miracles which are available. It's not that we have to wait for them, but if we are open to that, if we look at the other side of the coin, away from just the loss and the grief, then there are so many doors which can open up. And that's pretty much what happened when he took his life, because I had a hunger for different things I didn't pay attention to prior. It also started to define my spirituality in a completely different new way, or just the example with a reincarnation. I never had even thought about it until I lost him, And then I had other incredible incidents that a close friend of mine became very sick of cancer less than a year later. And we were creating a healing circle for him to take care of him with body work and emotional support. And I would drive him to cancer treatments. And I was really, really close with him till the day he died, in a group of 3 or 4 women friends. And in that experience, I knew at some point really clearly, and my friend Ollie was his name, he also transmitted very often that he's aware of my brother's presence. Or I would look into his eyes and I instantly knew he's coming through without that I ever believed in it or something like that. There were just so many extra gifts and blessings I received. And I always look at that time where I was able to be with him through his passing. That was given to me because my brother left from one day to the other. I couldn't even say goodbye because that was a brutal ending, because I came as a surprise to his wedding. And the moment I get out of the car, he's like, I knew you would be here, because yes, we both knew that I would be here. His daughter was just 3 months young. And then on the last weekend of my visit, that was the weekend after his wedding, we were supposed to meet in my hometown here with my parents. And so the weekend he was supposed to come here, he texted us saying the baby is sick, he can't come. And he told his wife that he's seeing us. So none of us was expecting hearing from him, because we both thought he's with the other party. But what he did was throw his phone away, turned it off, took a train to Amsterdam, got drugs, got into the most beautiful hotel right out of the main station, which everybody knows, whoever has been in Amsterdam, and took his life in a bathtub.
Oh, wow.
And by the time I left Monday, my mom got the call on Tuesday when they found him. And by Thursday, I was back on a plane.
Wow.
Yeah. Really heavy duty experience. And yet, I can over and over just say there are so many blessings out of it. I miss him, of course. I will always miss him. Communicate regularly, or he communicates with me quite regularly, irregularly. Yeah.
Yeah. So his death, as you've pointed to, his death opened up, it sounds like, all of these, the seeking of like knowledge and understanding and beliefs on your part that you hadn't necessarily had before. Is that right?
Oh, totally. Or also see how different family members were so occupied by the old school beliefs. Like, for example, if you take your life, you're a sinner and you will end up in hell. My dad was sobbing at the minister's neck, asking for forgiveness because his son now would be in hell, because that's the way he was raised. And to see that, and also to clearly choose to detach myself from beliefs I grew up with, was for me a very healthy and needed experience.
I had a similar experience in the death that I experienced, just kind of like shook the world that I knew. I always think that my age, I was in my 20s, I was so young. So that just contributed to this like searching of trying to understand and trying to define and trying to just learn more. So for me, it just like I didn't plan that. It just sort of like, I feel like it came for me from a place of desperation. Like they're gone. How is that possible? I need to figure this out. And I was trying to like solve the problem, and learn more about it in a sense. But I'm curious about you, like, was that like a conscious decision you made to search out this information, or how did that evolve for you?
Well, I had another really interesting little divine event. And I don't know what your listeners, how they will receive that. I can only say I've heard about things like that before. Never thought it would happen to me, but then it did. And again, it changed something in me. And sometimes it's even not necessary to put it into words, because the experience does something on a cellular level with you, on a deeper soul level, if that makes sense. But I was seeing a massage therapist at the time who also could connect to the other side, and he would give readings. And so the massage was always combined with, first you have a little session and he would tune in and he would tell you whatever he received, nothing fancy schmancy. It was just part of the work he did. And so briefly after my brother's death, I'm sitting across from him and I'm looking at his face, and like a black and white TV, when you turn it off and the pixels would all go zoom, through the middle and the picture is gone.
Yeah.
His face is gone. And I'm blinking and I'm opening my eyes and my brother's face is there.
Wow.
And I was shell-shocked because, again, I've heard it, you've seen it in whatever kind of shows and blah, that kind of stuff. I would have never, especially in that moment, expected anything like that. And all I recognized was a waterfall of tears coming out of my eyes without that I could even control it. And I know now, over the years of the work I've been doing, that that is a sign of truth. This is spirit coming through, and it's healing happening if you allow it to happen. And as quick as the pixels went back and my brother's face was there, poof, they were gone again. And even my friend was shocked because although he didn't know what I saw, he felt that I saw something tremendously. And we talked a little bit about it, but then I got on the table, received my massage, and had a lot of release just from that. And at the very end, my friend uses, and I still use those cards because that was the inspiration from the experience I had with him. Conversations with God books by Neil Donald Walsh were also one of my very first books I started reading after my brother died, because I came from a minor religious upbringing, but I was definitely influenced by a very strong, strict belief my parents had, although we were really not regular churchgoers. Nevertheless, there was just, through the loss, there was a hunger for different kind of understandings. And so those books I had started reading, and my massage friend would always at the end of a session have a deck with quotes of all the books put out, and you would pull a card as a final closure for your session. So that day I pulled a card, and then he stopped and said to me, you know what, I feel like you need to pull another card, because with your brother's presence today, I feel like maybe he has something to tell you in the end, or he gives you a card. And then I pulled the card, which again changed my entire outlook on everything, because there's one card in the deck my brother would have given to me, and that's the card I pulled. Because they're positive, they are all positive affirmations. There's no right or wrong. There's only what serves you and what doesn't. Love is the opposite of fear. So basic understanding of teachings, which doesn't even have to come from a book called Conversations with God. It's life lessons. But one card in this deck, and that's the card I pulled, reads, "Be sure as heaven." And in that moment, I just started cracking up and laughing, because all the questions I would have had that day: is he safe? Is he where he wants to be? Is he experiencing now a more peaceful life than the turmoil life he obviously had without that we even knew? That's the answer to this. It's like, literally translated, if you have doubts, this is the card for any doubt, any fear, any worry, because it's all taken care of. The universe is taken care of, and it's like sure as the amen in church, if you believe in amen, but it's as sure as heaven. And that changed everything, because I copied it 20 times and put it everywhere in my house, in my car, everywhere I could see it, because as you know, grief comes and goes unexpected and returns and hits you and pulls the rug out underneath your feet. And so that was my mantra, which called me back to be sure as heaven, and always brought a smile on my face, because it really would have been the answer he would have given me if I would have asked him in person. He would have said that. And I even hear him say that in German, because the card is so strong in what it says. And then interestingly from there, and that's how I know when he communicates with me, I'm using that deck since then with all my clients. And every time a client pulls it, there's a personal story, and there is a reason behind it, and there's laughter involved. Or I share the story, and then it turns out there's a rat's tail of other stories coming out of this because he shows up.
Yeah. I think I might have pulled that card once with
I'm
you.
pretty sure. I'm actually pretty sure, because that's where our conversation also started about loss.
Interesting. What an experience.
Yeah.
Do you think if you had described that entire experience to a younger version of yourself who had not yet experienced your brother's death, what would she have thought about that?
Probably spooky, but what I like, because I wasn't there when I was younger, what I think is important is that you have a reference point, and that maybe you don't get it at that moment, but later on you will remember that, or you may remember that. I can't guarantee that, but you have been introduced to a different thinking, to a different viewpoint, to an experience from somebody who also didn't ever expect that could happen to her.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had different, but in similar ways, experiences too that are just nothing. If I'd told a younger version of myself about them, she probably would have been like, "You're crazy." But they're so hard to put into words. They're so hard to articulate to somebody else who doesn't experience it. But to me, they felt very real and have definitely shifted my belief system and my perspective.
And I also find I don't care if it's approved, who approves anyways.
Yeah.
As long as it takes away heaviness, sadness, depression, desperation, all the side effects of loss and grief.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is,
and me neither.
Especially since I would say mainstream still too often relates to heaven and hell and to the separation. And in the end, what for me is clear more than ever, not just through those losses, but also by walking on this earth long enough, that there is no separation, that we just transition to a different plane, that we connect differently, and that there is still a whole nother playground out there. We don't know yet what it's about,
Yeah. So you were saying more recently your dad died, right?
Yeah.
A couple years ago, is that right?
Actually 2 years in a few weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 years
And
ago.
that was a whole nother eye-opening experience, because as a birth doula, I wanted for years to take an end-of-life class because I want to have a full spectrum of experience, not working necessarily in that field, but I've been able to, or blessed to be with people on their last journey a handful of times. And that doesn't count in the nursing school experiences, but also in my adult life through my body work. And I always wanted to know a little bit more about it. And my dad had a terminal lung disease. And just from being a nurse, I knew that there will be a period in his life where it will come to an end. And so when I finally found a local class, because I didn't want to travel, and with a pandemic and everything online, for me, online is not the way I like to study. I need to be in person, especially when it's tender and deep topics like that. I find that a personal connection is really crucial for not only how you transmit a topic or how you share experiences. Is really important to be present with each other, not just on a screen. So I found a local class, and that was April 1st. And that's also the day I moved to Phoenix in 97. But that day during lunchtime, my brother called, and I instantly knew when he called that it was the reason my dad wasn't doing good. So that was the case. And so my course went over 4 weeks, and we had to do like a finishing project to complete the course, an honoring project or legacy project it was called. And we had different options, but one of them, and that was completely talking to me, was actually, with a protocol of questions, interview somebody who was preparing for death. And it was clear, I'm interviewing my dad. What an opportunity. And also I have to go 1 year ahead of this event 2 years ago. So 3 years ago, I came back home because all these years, I never knew if and when I would see my parents again. I didn't know who will go first. My dad's illness wasn't as dramatic then, but that year I came with a clear interest of asking him questions. How do you think about what could happen, or how do you picture if there is anything changing in your life? What would you like doing about that? And so I'm just looking around. Yeah, I don't know if he's here. I'll see in a minute. Anyways, I got here, and the next morning my mom says, have you met Dad's new friend? And I'm like, what do you mean, Dad's new friend? And he's like, come with me. So she took me into the room I'm sitting in now. My dad was sitting here at this desk, and he was a wood crafter for hobby reasons. And I came in, and he had carved the Great Reaper. Do I say it right? My
Grim
English,
Reaper?
Grim Reaper.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. In like a beautiful wooden statue this big. And I was actually like, oh my God, I wasn't prepared for that. I was jet lagged, and I had planned on finding the right moment to talk about it. And bam, here he was. So I looked at him and said, oh, that's interesting. How did you come along finding him? And my dad paused, and I'll never forget the look he had with a grin in his face. And he turned to me and said, I know he's there. That's why I put him right there so I can see him every day. And I can tell him I have too much to do and I need more time.
Wow.
And that was my first understanding for, okay, he's getting ready, but he's fine. He is in a dialogue, and he's requesting more time. And that's exactly what happened. My dad became like a maniac with wooden carvings. I can show you here. Here he is in his full glory. He did stuff like that.
Oh, wow. Whoa.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
In
them.
his last year, he did over 500 letters, pieces for the kindergarten. Oops, sorry, that was the frame. He just carved till my mom was close to take it away from him. And I'm like, Mom, if you do that, he'll be gone quicker than you want to.
Yeah.
So he was just, even with oxygen constantly in his nose, he was pretty much carving till the last days of his life. So when I came here 2 years ago, now I'm coming back to the 2 years back, I started interviewing him for 4 weeks every week for a good hour with a protocol of questions, which we had in our training, but which was also exactly the same questions I asked my clients for birth, which I already knew how close birth and death are. But then learning more about it, learning about the legalities, same hiccups, same issues, then out of hospital, home. And again, same problem. We took home birth out of homes. We took dying out of homes.
Yeah.
So do people really know what their options are? And then the questions in the catalog were really simple. Where do you see yourself? Do you ever want to have call 911 because 911 means they will extend your life? Do you want to die at home peacefully? What does that mean? What are the requirements? Do you have the setup supported by a doctor or anybody else? Who do you want in the room? Do you want music? Do you want aromatherapy? Do you want to have food? Do you want to have people? What do you want to wear? What do you like to have around you? The catalog is endless.
Yeah.
So I started asking him all these questions, and out of that also I learned things I never knew about my dad, which was beautiful. I recorded it all. Now my mom, who was not very excited about it first because I cut her out. My mom is always attached to my dad, and I needed to have these dialogues without her. So I also had the opportunity to tell my dad, hey, this is between the two of us. You can share it with her, but the interview is just us. And I hadn't had that with my dad because my dad was a hermit, and he always pulled himself back away. He participated in life with us, but he was always more of a here in his room or out carving. Yeah. And then by the time I got here in May, I spent the whole month of May here, and actually didn't want to leave because his decline was obvious. And my mom, although I had said I can stay, said, no, I think you should go home. And because I had some events happening, and I made it home for like less than 10 days. And then my dad pretty much told me that I have to come back because I had promised him as my brother that I would help him with the medication the doctor had given him, that if it got to a point of he couldn't breathe enough anymore. He was in the highest dose of liquid oxygen. And this is one of the worst deaths anybody can experience because it comes with panic attacks severely, because if you can't breathe, well, you have a panic attack. And so he had these medication, and we had a really great family doctor who was supportive, not as a getting him over the edge, but to calm him down. And we also knew that if he chooses to, he can take more of that, and that would help him to transition. And that was a clear conversation I had with my dad. Yeah. And then the story ended up very different, but for that, we probably would talk for the next 2 hours. But in the end, it was a divine symphony he created. In that month I was here, on his last day of taking him out in a wheelchair, we went to the graveyard and he looked at where he wants to be buried. And that's exactly the spot he got. Everything unfolding was just like the way he wanted to go.
Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So to make sure I understand that, he took a medicine that assisted in the dying process for
No,
him?
in the end, his body was so weak that I was supposed to come and help him, possibly. But it didn't even get to that. And here to really show the divine connection, whatever you believe divine connection is. But I was supposed to be here that day, and I flew in through Amsterdam, which I normally never do. The moment I touched down, I texted my mom that I landed. My mom texted me back that he had just taken his last breath. My brother committed suicide in Amsterdam, and who was with him? His daughter, who was here the night before to talk about everything Grandpa had to give her before he would leave, because she knew it would be close. Again, I get the goosebumps. In a way, yeah, my brother's loss, my dad's passing, in the end, it was all connected. And as cheesy as it may sound, as brutal as it was for me to receive that text landing, at the same time, I had to laugh because I felt like I was the closest to both of them up there in the sky before I even touched ground. And they were all pulling strings together of making this happen. And I never had a feeling of, he chose to go without me. He told me that I need to be there. I didn't need to be there. It was pure perfection on so many levels for my entire family.
That's such a cool story, how it unfolded.
Yeah.
And
I love sharing it just because of that, because with all the loss and with all the pain and without missing him, every time I tell the story, I smile more than I ever cry about it, you know, and I cried plenty. But I think that's also, what I've learned through these major losses in my life, that there is the other side, and that we're always invited to look at it. And yes, you can't speak for everybody that it happens for everybody that way. And nevertheless, there is a silver lining, and there can be so much beauty out of a loss that I just love talking about it, because very often, me included in the past, I couldn't see it. I didn't want to see it.
Yeah. Same. Same.
Yeah.
So without directly naming it, I think you've alluded to a lot of this, but I'm going to just ask for you, where do grief and yoga intersect for you?
It intersects, and I teach restorative yoga. And for me, that is body, mind, soul yoga. If I talk about it, I'll talk from that point of view, because the way I put classes together is for me creating a space for healing and for transformation and for open space and release. Besides that, everybody needs that. Everybody at some point experiences loss. And I believe that, especially in restorative poses, where we actually lay still, supported by blankets and props and bolsters, and also by the comforting weight of sandbags on body parts, by direction of breath, by helping people to breathe. And I just had that recently again, that a young, very athletic, buff girl with tons of tension and tightness and stress, she had never been instructed to take the breath into the tightness, to breathe further than the tension. And again, same as I instruct my laboring moms. If you don't take the breath through the sensation into the space where it's needed to birth your child or release pain, or maybe lift up clouds of heaviness, then you will be stuck with that, and you will store it even more and deeper inside your body till the day comes where something else happens. You either get sick or you hurt yourself, something like that, because the body needs the homeostasis, the balance of everything. And grief is part of joy, and loss is part of gain. So it all has to come together. And in that way, I believe that specific, or any yoga, if it's the right moment, the right person, the right day, whatever it is, or in my style, I love to add music and readings or meaningful quotes to put something together which touches the heart. Because wherever we store loss and grief, what mostly gets forgotten or covered up most is the heart. And in that way, back to your question, any heart opening in yoga hopefully will enable somebody to peel some layers, or without even doing it consciously. And I'm sure a lot of people who listen to it here or have taken yoga classes, that's also how I had my very first emotional release, was through yoga, through a pose. Out of nowhere, tears come down my face. Did I know that moment what was going on? No, but I learned and understood later that is what needed to be released. That is stored emotion, positive, negative, whatever it is. But that also applies to the loss and the grieving part. And in that regard, a lot of people close their hearts in general, regardless to loss or anything else. And I strongly believe in cracking the heart open in a loving, safe way is important for all of us, because it's also clear that we will all experience loss. I don't think anybody walks through life without ever not losing somebody.
Absolutely. So it sounds like that's been a very intentional way that you've approached designing and teaching your yoga classes, is to create that space that will
that
allow for
container.
that opening.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's also my medicine, it's funny that I always have a theme, or I pick what resonates with me, and people come up after class saying, how did you know that I needed to hear this? And I'm always saying, well, it's my message too, because if I wouldn't relate to it, I couldn't present it, or I wouldn't be able to talk about it the way I am. Because I'm not the one who knows everything or has cleared everything. I have my own projects. I have my own stories. I work on my grief and loss in different kind of ways. So that's why I love teaching these classes, because it is always an exchange. It is such a beautiful coming together, especially at the studio where I teach at the moment. Without that, it's related to any faith, religion, but the class there feels like church. And it's a community of people coming together. And in that moment, there is no separation. And in all my years of teachings, I've never had it in a way it's happening since I started teaching at the studio I'm at right now. So it has been a great, great blessing to me, and a great joy to be able to participate, and also to provide and hold space for that. And the space where we have class is just perfectly designed for it. So yeah.
I miss your yoga classes. It's since I've moved so far north, it's not
I
very
know
convenient. But I want to make it at some point.
Please. Yes. Yeah.
We've covered a lot. Is there anything else, though, that still feels like it's important for you to name in this conversation?
Well, what I'm big about since the experience with my dad is that I really encourage anybody, no matter what age, to talk to their loved ones, to their parents early enough. Same with birth. We have to break through the stigma and to the restrictions system has applied onto us, and we need to know our options. And to see how my dad tailored his own passing, and how everything came together, and how much peace and also already healing through the loss of losing him helped my entire family, and how the church service was a true celebration of life. and not like people crying their eyes out and being in a dark place of, I don't know what to do from here, was for me a really life-changing experience. And as I said, we don't talk about it enough.
No, no, we don't. Yeah.
And especially young people, who don't think about death. It is important that we start talking about it, because we're all going to die and we're all going on somewhere, and we don't even know who goes when and where and how. I find that in the days and times we're living, another very interesting and also inspiring aspect of life. What do I do with this? Recognizing we really don't know. It's a time of big uncertainty where we really don't know what's going to happen, how, and that's not coming from a place of fear, but from a place of, what do I need to figure out before that? What do I want to tell my beloved ones? How do I really see myself going into a chapter, which I don't know when it's happening, but am I ready for that when it's happening?
Yeah. So because you were able to have those sorts of conversations with your dad, you were able to know him better as a person, but also better understand his preferences and his choices around certain things. How do you think having that opportunity changed your experience with grief around his death?
My loss, my grief was very different than I would have thought prior to that. Because living so far away, I've been contemplating about what do I do being so far away if it comes to a point that I know it's coming to an end. And there were years where I was really afraid of it and I didn't know what to do with it. And I don't know if you remember, but I swim daily if I can. And so swimming is for me often an outlet where I can just, I draw I do my laps and my mind clears. And I'll remember that at one of those swim times, I clearly received a message while I was swimming, I was in that loop of, what do I do if they get sick? What do I do if one of them goes and I'm far away and I don't know what to do? It became a circle I was hung up in for a while. And while I was swimming, I received a clear message like, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. And when you're swimming, it's like you're doing a meditation or you're running or whatever you have as an outlet for coming back to center and rooting yourself. For me, the element of water helps me a lot in that regards. And I knew from that day on that I don't have to be afraid of it, but I wanted to be differently prepared. And looking back, life just represented itself more and more with opportunities, and then with the course I took, and then with the unfolding of everything, if that makes sense.
It changed it sounds like planning for it in a sense and talking about it changed the entire experience.
And you say planning. In birth, we avoid planning like the plague, because you can't plan a birth. And you can also, some people can plan their birth, their death, but we came far away from that. It's like animals who have been so domesticated that they don't hardly ever die on their own anymore. While if they were living in the wild, that was just how their life ended, because they knew. And we know of stories in movies or books, or maybe even in our circle of extended friends, when somebody just closes their eyes and decides to go. Or the beautiful movie, The Notebook, what a beautiful passing for a couple which was so deeply connected in love, with a whole nother story around it. But I think if we would all fear death as well as birth less, our life will unfold with much more delight.
I like that. I never use the word delight. I like that word. It's a good word. If somebody hasn't taken the courses that you've taken, do you know of any resources that are available that maybe give ideas of questions to ask parents?
Where to take the course?
No, not where to take the course, but like, are there books or are there lists of questions available?
There's so many books. Absolutely. So many books and so many people. Just as birth doula became like a standard now for birth, end-of-life doulas are growing in a massive amount of ways, because again, hospitals don't serve humanity on beginning and end of life the way we often deserve it. And people actually want it if you really ask them what they want, you know?
Yeah.
But out of my top of my head, I can't really tell you all the books, but there's so many, so many books. Yeah.
Okay. End of life doula or end of life midwife or death doula, death midwife.
Yes.
Those terminology.
My first introduction, actually, now that you say that, I had to study Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in nursing school.
Yeah.
And I remember night-long conversations. And I was actually another full circle in my life. I had no idea, moved to Arizona, and out of the blue, somebody tells me that she lives in Arizona. And if I would have ever at that point in my life had a wish, like some people want to meet the Pope or anybody else, I always thought, oh, if I could ever meet this woman. And I ended up meeting her.
You did? And I didn't know that.
I did. Yes. She lived in Scottsdale.
Yeah. I knew she lived in Arizona for a time.
Yes.
But yeah.
The Wheel of Life is her autobiography, which is breathtaking and tells you all about her life. But her books were also the books I pulled out again after my brother died.
Yeah.
I go back to the source I got introduced to when I was just barely 18, and her books are timeless. And from there, you find other people from referrals and everywhere else. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm more than happy if anybody wants to know more, they can contact me and I can dig out some titles.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. It's now 9:00 p.m. in Germany. So I appreciate you being here at the late hour and from the other side of the world. Thank you.
Thank you. And while I'm hearing you say all that, because of our changing of time and with my situation here, I just feel now my visit here has really come to a completion. So I really thank you for that. I'm so glad we did this. I wasn't so sure if it works time-wise. Plus I have 4 hours of sleep coming up. So it's perfect.
I'm glad it worked out that way. And it gives you
a
sense of completion.
Me too.
So, thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being here with me, Laura Walton, and my incredible guest on Grief on Purpose. Your presence is a gift, and I'm so grateful you're walking this path with us. For more connection and resources, you'll find everything you need in the show description. To my guests, thank you for sharing your person with us today. It is truly an honor to know your story. I'm your host, Laura Walton. Until next time, be kind to yourself and remember you're not alone in your grief. We are here on purpose.